Yeah, I was really upset at first. I thought like, oh my God, 11 years down the drain, I'm never going to catch up. But enough people pointed it out that I was like, I can rebuild something. So they're like, the most valuable part of the company was you. They removed you from the company, but they didn't actually destroy the thing that you have. So I just started the Jordan Harbinger Show, and I took the entire audience.
So moving forward, and we talked earlier about how underappreciated entrepreneurship is, that everybody feels like they can start a business and they all just want to borrow money to start their first venture, and there's no sweat equity and everything. And you went on after that to actually build a business and had your radio program going on, built it up with some partners. And I've had the experience before as well, building a business and not paying myself for 2 years. And then by the end of the third year where I'd started paying myself, had, a bunch of my employees conspire with a client and, steal contracts and all. So I'm just telling you that because this is why I'm so compelled to ask you this question is, how did you, having been such an integral part of building that and putting in all that sweat equity and getting to the end, how did you avoid digging a few shallow graves and filling them and moving on that way versus how did you find the resilience to just kind of restart from scratch, knowing that you've been screwed essentially? Yeah, I definitely got screwed. So yeah, I was really upset at first. And I remember also being the most scared, the most stress was being scared that I wouldn't be able to rebuild something, like anything. I thought like, oh my God, 11 years down the drain, I'm never going to catch up. I don't know how to we were first to market. It's hard to grow a podcast. It's going to be impossible, yada, yada. I was worried about that. So you were more in distress than being pissed? Yes. I was still angry, but I was also like, my lawyer and some of the consultants and a lot of the people that we'd worked with, I reached out to my network because I'd been big on building relationships over the years. Yeah. So I did like 140 phone calls or something with people that I trusted and liked that were smart. And one of the recurring themes was the biggest part of the company is the fact that you do the podcast and that you do the sales and that you do the branding and marketing and that it's your face. So they're like, the most valuable part of the company was you. So you're not losing anything because they can't remove that. They removed you from the company and they flushed the equity and the brand value down the toilet, but they didn't actually destroy the thing that you have. And I was like, that's a really good point. But I wasn't sort of egotistical enough to be like, I'm the most important guy in the company. But enough people pointed it out that I was like, I can rebuild something because everybody said that was the value. So I just started the Jordan Harbinger Show from the ashes of that old show. And I took the entire audience. I mean, that show, I could see they don't know this, but I could see the stats of the old show because I had friends that worked at the hosting company and I just asked them to send me monthly reports. And you could see the downloads went down like 90%. Wow. After I left. And then all of those people, my downloads went from, 0, new show, to hundreds of thousands pretty much right away. The other thing that happened was, and they didn't expect this, and one of the things they sued me for, which they lost on this count, was I called the advertisers and said, FYI, I have left the company, so I will no longer be the one who's endorsing your product or service. I can't ask you to come with me, but I would love to have your support in the future. I'm over here. And they were like, whoa. No, we're paying you to endorse our product or service. So they took their ad dollars away from the previous show. They said I poached those people, but I had it all in writing. They're claiming it was a no-compete violation of some sort. But they didn't have a non-compete because they couldn't afford to buy my shares. So they couldn't enforce the non-compete. They tried to do that, but the judge was like, if you want to enforce this, you got to buy the shares. Oh, we're going to buy those shares. They missed every deadline. Yeah. And the judge, they were trying to argue that I was competing in despite of them providing notice. And my lawyer was like, he doesn't have to stop competing because you provided notice. If you want to take action and give my man a check, then he will stop competing with you. But until then, you're all blow, no show, all hat, no cattle, go suck it, right? Yeah. And the judge agreed with that as well. The other thing is my network, Podcast One, just shifted all the ad dollars from the old show to the new show. And the reason that, and then they made a huge mistake and they sued Podcast One, and Podcast One was owned by a guy named Norm Pattis, rest in peace. And he was a friggin' dog, man. And he was like, I loved him. He was like, oh man, you sued me? That was
that was a mistake.
Bad idea.
So he countersued and they were like, oh my God. So they settled with me right away because Norm Pattis was like, I am going to bury your grandchildren with this lawsuit. Yeah. And they were like, oh, and I said to Norm, if I get them to settle, will you drop your suit? And he was like, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I just want to see these guys bent over. So I called them and I was like, I can get Podcast One to drop the countersuit that you guys stepped in. Yeah. If you settle, I know you can't afford to buy my shares. So they ended up giving me all of the intellectual property, everything that I wanted from the business. They couldn't afford to buy my shares, the business. And I was still like annoyed. I was like, I'm so annoyed. I wish I could do something to them. And my lawyer said it best. He goes, you have done the number one worst thing that you could have done to your previous business, which is leave it in the charge of these two guys. Because they're lazy, entitled, and no talent ass clowns. And he was right.
Yeah, and karma doesn't really help in a lot of the situations. You know, if you would have gone on and done whatever, whether it failed or succeeded, obviously it's succeeded. Yeah. But the karma part is less of the focus once you're hyper focused on what you're doing. Most of those cases. Is that true?
It's true. Like, would I have loved to see something horrible happen to those guys or whatever? I honestly not real. Like, part of me is like, that would have been great. But also I just didn't care.
Right.
I was like, I'm too busy focusing on moving forward. I don't have time to like wish bad things on you guys. Like, I don't even care. And also, I also know, this sounds like very weird philosophical maybe, but I also know that like from their perspective, or it's mostly one guy, he was doing the number one thing he felt that he had to do, which was preserve his ego. Speaking of ego protection, yep. He was preserving his ego because what he couldn't stand was if I left and succeeded without him, what that proves to him was that he wasn't required for me to succeed. And that broke something inside that guy.
Right.
And so me succeeding was like the best revenge I could possibly get because that was his worst fear was me succeeding without him.
Was revenge any part of your motivation to start?
No, I was trying to survive and build a business and do what I love.
You'd already jumped out of the plane. You had to figure out the parachute.
Exactly. So the fact that it also like put sand in his crotch for the next several years, and I know it did because we have mutual friends that are like, he still complains about you for 8 hours a day. And I was like, Jesus, I think about this guy like twice a year.
Yeah.
You know, holy smokes. It's pathetic, right? But my new company was more profitable in the first 8 months than the old company was in the peak of its existence.
That's amazing.
So it was really obvious that I had simply dropped the dead weight and moved on.
Yeah. And it says a lot about you too.